10:39 and this meeting is called to order. I'll begin with reading out the Indigenous Solidarity Statement. So we'd like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Ganyan-Gehaga Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Montreal is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. So that being said, the roll call sheet is going around. There's a couple of excusals to get to, but first I just need a motion from the floor to appoint Caleb as interim minute keeper. Sophie?
I motion to appoint Caleb as interim minute keeper.
Okay, seconded by Margot. Is there any dissent to the motion? As in any no's? Okay, perfect. So that carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Caleb, for stepping in. And with that, we can move on to, I have a couple of requests for excusal from executives. As you know, counselors don't require excusal from a special counsel, but executives do, which implicitly waives the financial penalty incurred of not going to a meeting. And I have excusal requests from Camille and from Akira, who couldn't be here today for personal reasons. Yes, Ron?
I move to excuse.
Okay, to a second. Margot? Is there any dissent to excusing Camille and Akira? Perfect. So that carries unanimously. And with that, we can get into the more substantive and informational portions of the meeting, starting with agenda point number 3, which is Woodnote Co-op financial situation. And Sophie, the floor is yours. Or
John,
sorry, John.
take it away.
I think the most real closed session for this.
Oh.
It's a sensitive.
Okay. Do we have a second? Sophie? All those in favor of entering closed, please raise your placards. It requires a 2/3. Is that a yes? Yeah. Sorry. Okay. All those opposed? Sorry, that was 8. And any abstentions? Perfect. 1 abstention from Patrick. So I'll just ask anyone who's not council, executive, myself, the minute keeper, judicial board, and that's it. To please step out, and we'll call you back in when we go back into open.
I just want to say something. If you guys think I'm actually writing closed session minutes, I'm not. I'm just doing the fancy stuff for minutes. Just so you know.
We'll never doubt you again.
So retail.
Alright, so just I guess I will give a little brief while the computer is loading. We have Leah here with us. Leah is a psychology undergraduate student at Concordia who brought me the project that I sent to all of you, and I've put together a little PowerPoint to kind of go over the overview, and Leah is here to answer questions as they arise. So, yeah. Nope. No. Just let me do this. Alright, so Leah has named the project the Mindful Project, and this is sort of an overview. It is a 4-week mindfulness training program that is done in 75-minute sessions once a week. The groups go anywhere from 10 to 20 undergraduate students who go through a screening process to see if the program is right for them. It's a mix of interactive theory, meditation practice, as well as a Q&A period with the instructor in each session. So every week the students have meditation homework, and it's designed for students to get hands-on mindfulness practice experience and a mindfulness training to deal with the everyday stresses of undergraduate life and find healthy coping mechanisms to have good mental wellness while in the stressful academic setting, as we can all relate. Yeah. So the other thing that's great is that the students can reach the instructor at any point via email throughout the 4 weeks. The overall objective of the program is to offer students an in-depth, science-based, and secular training in mindfulness. So it helps them develop a personal daily mindfulness practice and foster autonomy and improve well-being, as well as academic performance. Basically, it's a great baseline to develop healthy mental wellness habits. So it was intently built for Concordia by a Concordia student, which is kind of cool. It's sensitive to the struggles that academic life brings to its students, and it was tailor-made for our academic context, which is really great. It is not meant to replace counseling or clinical therapy. It is a peer-to-peer service, but it's not to replace the kind of support you get from professionally trained psychotherapists. It is for two specific types of student profiles. So one, it's the supported clinical profile, which would be someone like me, so someone who has a mental illness but is already supported by other people with professional training that are looking for specific toolkits to help better their mental wellness, or a non-clinical profile, which is students who are looking for better stress management tools overall without having the clinical necessities of a therapist or a psychiatrist. It's basically, there are three main program breakdowns. Am I standing in your way? Can you
Oh, not at all.
Okay, perfect. So there's the pre-program, which is the screening process, seeing if the student is right for the program and if the program is right for the student. Then there's the program itself with its interactive theory themes, which is not supposed to have an E at the end. And then there's the post-program. So the pre-program is these students meet the coordinator of the program and the instructor. It's a short screening process to see if the program is right for them and if they fit into the two profiles of students that are best suited for them. And if this program is not for them, then they're referred to services in Montreal or at Concordia that might better fit their immediate needs. So it does have a way to make sure that students who do need support that's a little bit more intense in this program can have access to it, and we make those resources available to them. The interactive theory themes within the program, it's basically an introduction to mindfulness as a practice. It's stress management, procrastination management, and empathy, compassion, and purpose. I'm sure we've all had our quarter life crises here, so we can kind of relate to needing to find that direction in life, as well as procrastination management. So then there's the post-program. So there are two documents that are distributed to people who do go through the program. There's a reference document which has mindful resources in Montreal or online so they can follow up and continue their practice after the 4 weeks training is done. And the program evaluation for students to give feedback about the program. In the past, I didn't include a slide about this, but in the past it's been done at Loyola. And so the idea would be that in the fall there would be one program offered at Loyola, and we would use the fall semester to, with Leia, come up with a downtown program as well, so that in the winter we could offer one downtown and one at Loyola. It usually takes place at the Loyola Chapel, so we'd be looking to find a space downtown that could facilitate a similar feel, which is why in the immediate time there's not really enough time for us to figure out the downtown logistics, so we're going to tailor it over the fall semester and then in the winter semester really launch it full force. And basically, I have a picture in my email that I should have added in here and didn't, which shows the setup at the Loyola chapter. There's a lovely little projector screen, and then students sit in a semicircle with mats and cushions, and it's very comforting and zen and chill, and I don't know, I thought it was great. So the proposed budget that I've put together for the program, it costs total per program, so each 4 weeks training session with the payment of the coordinator comes to $1,610. So that includes the facilitator cost, which is $1,000 for the facilitator who is an expert in mindfulness and understands the Concordia context and has been running it with the Psychology Association in the past. Then the coordinator fee, which is to organize and coordinate the 4-week program, interview participants, and get the postmortem survey data. It is about 20 hours per program at the living wage, which is how I calculated it. That comes to about 308. I rounded it up to 310. And then marketing, so $100 for marketing to promote the program, gather participants via social media and postering, and then other materials, so a cost of projector rental for 4 weeks through IITS. And the motion that I proposed is that we dedicate $5,000 for this year so we can run 3 programs. I rounded up to $5,000 in case there's any troubleshooting. $1,610 for 3 programs comes out to around $4,800, so we just rounded up, so there's a nice $200 buffer. And there are lots of little pots of money we can find this from, which is a totally doable thing, whether or not it comes from the operations budget or from the Student Endowment Fund or another CCSL funding. I just really thought that we should dedicate money to this because I think it's worthwhile. Yes?
Just a quick question about the projector. Would it be more cost efficient to buy one?
So for the first I think that's something that we need to look into. The thing with the cost of buying a projector is that we would have to then, one, make sure we had access to the screen, and then someone would have to transport it, so there would be more labor costs associated with that. So I would have to look into it. The rental is very straightforward, and that way we could just use the computer in a classroom downtown, or the one at the chapel already, and we wouldn't have to worry about misplacing it, breaking it. It's there, it's taken care of, and IATS is responsible for it. So that was my thought. But that's a very good point.
Sorry, I know the room is really weirdly set up, but just try to answer the room, because it's like if you're focused in the corner,
Yeah.
then it's a little bit hard to hear.
I can repeat it if everyone didn't hear me. Are you sure? Okay. All right. So I will read the motion now. That's good.
Oh, Rory has a question.
Oh, what was the question? I was literally just going to...
Okay. And then once the motion is seconded, you can explain a little more as well. Like, it's just before
sure.
voting, if there's questions about the motion, we can...
Oh, sure. I was just going to add, like, points, just I find that add to maybe the argument of it, if there's time or not.
Oh, yeah, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, it's just I've been working on this for a while. So, like, I know all the good points. I'm like, oh, I want to tell them. So there's just a few things, because I understand on paper it's a really good idea that she's given to you guys.
Sorry.
It's okay. She's given you like a really good overview, but obviously it's kind of hard to see like what are the advantages in actual life. First thing I kind of want to point out is that it's a peer-to-peer program. So this is not only me as a Concordia student, I've built this, being at Concordia, being in an academic setting. Even the instructor himself, he has just finished graduate school and he is now teaching master's and undergraduate students. So we're really connected to that. But also during the program, there's a lot of sessions where students share between themselves their experiences and what has happened. So that also counts as peer-to-peer, which I think is really important in the mandate of this year, if I'm correct. So that's the first point I kind of wanted to point out. The second point is that there's not a lot of mental health initiatives that don't just raise awareness, but that offer actual training and skills workshop. And I'm not talking just one-time workshops, which are great, but are very limited, but 4 times during a month, and that ask students to do a certain task, build the skill every day. So for what this is, this brings a lot to the students from what I've seen in the past year. This thing is that, I'm not sure we've mentioned this, but yeah, so it has run already twice, and there are survey forms that have been done, and the results from these survey forms are really awesome. So honestly, like in general, it's always in the 90% rate that people love this, we recommend this to other students, and I thought that this was important to them. So I have all the data if anybody is curious about it. Yes.
Yeah, all right. First of all, great on you for putting on a project like this.
Oh,
It's
thanks.
really good to give back to the community in that way. I just wanted to ask a question, because there's so many great programs in Montreal and at Concordia, but unfortunately a lot of people don't hear about them.
Mhm.
So do you have anything on the marketing plan and how you plan to get this initiative to the students of Concordia?
You mean from outside Concordia, how do I encourage Concordians to go to these programs outside?
Well, like, so for Concordian students, like, do you have a marketing strategy thought out or anything to share on that?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So I have worked at Loyola in the past. Why? Because it's really easy. Because it's one campus. So the 2 ways I've mostly worked on because I was in the psychology undergraduate association, was through Facebook groups. That's what worked the most, honestly. That's where I got most of my people. But then you also have posters and such. I think with CSU's influence, I think winter semester, you guys let me post on the newsletter and someone saw it. So that has worked really well, honestly. For downtown, it's another challenge, but I'm having so many more ideas, and if there is a budget approved for it, which I can work on, yes, there's a lot of possibilities. I have been part of associations in the past year, so I've known a lot about how to promote things and how to get things across, and this will give me time to work out how to work downtown campus better. So I'm not really intimidated, I'm more like looking forward towards it.
Thank you. There's a question from Samantha and Sophie.
Is the program tailored towards 10 to 20 students because it's still in the experimental phase, or because that's how it's operated on for, up until now? I'm wondering why it's tailored to that many, and do the numbers plan to increase in the future should the program be really successful?
Yeah. So basically, every way that this program is structured is not just based on random. So why is it 1 month? it's because we're students and we don't have that much time. Whereas in an hour and 15 minutes, same thing, we're students and we don't have much time. Most programs last 2 months and have longer sessions, so this has really been tailored to students. And it's not just on my personal experience, there's actually a few different programs that resemble this, and most of them follow this form. What is for the 10 to 20 students, it's the same thing. Actually, studies have shown that the best amount, I think, is around 12. So what I'm doing around 20 is kind of pushing it, because I agree that at a certain point, more students, the better. We've always done around 15, and that is because one of the most important parts of these programs is the group dynamic. So yes, the instructor teaches a lot, but when the students exchange about their experiences and get back with it, the group atmosphere dynamic, how they exchange between each other, is even more important. And you can get that the bigger groups you get. So mindfulness programs have been around for like 40 years, some of the oldest ones. Like MBSR and BCT, they're all grouped. And you never go past 20, because once again, it's like when you get a bigger group, people get kind of weirder. Does that make sense? So that's the main reason why. It would not be able to go past 20, I feel, and keep the same, how can I say, it wouldn't work as well, but for very good reasons, I find. So for me at this point, it's just doing more groups.
Cool. Thank you. Sophie?
Yeah, I had the same kind of question, but like, would you be, if the program works and like more student wants to do it, would you be open to, is there room to do more, run the program more, or I don't?
I can answer that.
Sure, I can answer back, and if there's any parts missing, yeah, go ahead.
I guess my idea would be that like, so each program is for 10 to 20, but you can run multiple programs. So as student demand goes up, you just increase funding to have more of the groups run, and probably even eventually bring on another facilitator, so it's not just the same person doing it.
Yeah, that's what I told Sophie when I started. I mean, this program is really intended for Concordia students, depending on demand. I have no interest, and it's even Sophie that proposed that I get paid. Like, I did not care. I just want to pay the instructor because he's a professional and he's really amazing, and it's worth it, every cent. But I just want to do this because it's been part of my life for a long time. And I've seen so many students struggle much more than me, and I know that it's because of my training that I've had. So I've been really wanting to see, like, and this kind of matches to my last point, so I'll name it now. Did you guys know we're the last university who's not offering anything like this? McGill has great mindfulness programs offered by counseling services, so they all have like different services they're offering them. McGill has really amazing programs, workshops, sit-ins. UDM, their counseling program, their counseling has exactly a very similar program to this. And UCAM is offering MBSR, which is a 2-month program. So everybody is already on this. I've talked to counseling services at Concordia, but last minute they don't have the budget for it. So here I am, because I would really like Concordia to start, getting on with the idea that this stuff really works and it's really helpful. And I'm saying this also as a student.
Thank you. So there's a couple more questions from Alex and then Jared.
Yeah, I really like this idea. I think it's something we really should have done earlier. I'm just curious, is there any cost to the students whatsoever, like materials, anything like that?
So, yeah, I can answer that, but we've discussed it so much. So I was telling Sophie initially that before there was a small fee, in my opinion, for the students. Programs like these cost hundreds of dollars. That's obviously not an option. We'd make them pay $20 and then $25 for the whole program. And when we sent out the surveys, every student said they'd pay the minimum, and then most of them said they would have paid a lot more. But as Sophie said, and I can agree with this point, it's not every student that can have access to this, and particularly if I'm under CSU, which I totally get, we would have to make it as accessible as possible. My main concern was people who don't pay. So yes, I want anybody, for who it's fit to be able to do the program and benefit from it, but it's also a training program, and it's a personal training program. So you need motivated people. And the best way I found was through having like a sort of, money limit to help you out. But with Sophie, we've talked it out of different ways of finding students that I could insist, like, are you motivated because you need to be? And still, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do it, but like basically no, not making them pay at all. Because a lot of the material would come either from the funding or either from, for example, the chapel. The chapel rental is free, and it comes with cushions, mats, and chairs already. So
Thank you. Sophie, well, Jared was first. I don't know if you wanted to add something to the answer.
Yeah, for that, I think one of the most successful ways we thought about it was maybe having like a $5 to $10 deposit fee for the screening process that you would be reimbursed if you decided to do the program or not do the program based on that. That way, it guarantees that we're not wasting the coordinator's time by having a bunch of appointments that are missed, but it's still accessible and people get their money back like based on that. So that would be the only cost that would potentially be associated.
Thank you. Jared?
Point of information, is there a motion on the table?
No, it's going to, I think we're just asking some questions to the,
and I'm
the
down with my
coordinator
points,
first.
so.
Yeah, but there's one right behind your head.
Okay, in that case, can I make a motion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas the Mindful Project has successfully trained 23 undergraduate Concordia students in mindfulness practice, whereas the 2018-2019 executive was elected on a platform that centered on mental health projects, be it resolved that the CSU dedicate $5,000 to the execution of 3 mindful project programs for the 2018-2019 mandate.
Thank you. Ron, you're a second. Do you want to motivate Jared?
I mean, I think they kind of gave us everything. This seems like a really good project. I don't see why we'd say no, especially at Loyola campus. I know this is something, as an RA there, I know this is something that we'd really open. So I think it'd be great for the residents. I think it'd be great for the students that are studying there. I think it'd just be all around fantastic.
Thank you. Rory, did you want to be back? Rory?
Yeah, I guess my only recommendation is that you also do a deposit for the actual sessions themselves. It would be really disappointing to have people sign up, to have your list of 20, and then have students maybe miss once or twice or 3 times, 4 times. Like it gets to the point where then other students could have taken their place, and we all know from running events and from running workshops and things that people do make commitments and then don't follow through on all of them, and especially for a program that is spread out over a long period of time with multiple sessions. If someone shows up twice and then they stop showing up, that's a place that another student could have taken, and it's also like you have a room that's not full. It's an inefficient use of that instructor's time. So I mean, like if you do a $20 deposit that they get back at the end of the program, then it's not a financial hardship, but it's just some sort of incentive that like, you can't sign up for it. Like it's not just a free thing you can drop in, drop out. That's my only reservation.
Thank you.
Is that you do something like that.
Samantha?
I'm not against it.
May I inquire as to what kind of students are the perfect fit for a mindfulness program?
Well, I mean, general categories were kind of named before, but it stays that vague. It's really just motivated. I think that's the biggest part. And then just if it's a right fit for them really means that mindfulness is seen very easily as a relaxation technique, but it is not. It's an awareness technique. And so imagine, for example, someone who not only is depressed, but who also doesn't have any kind of support, professional or family-wise, which does happen. And what happens is kind of when you stub your toe, right? When you stub your toe, you wiggle it, you do something else you don't think about. What mindfulness does is you look at whatever is happening. And so for a lot of people, that can be an intense experience, but it's not overwhelming or detrimental to them. But if you have someone who's very depressed or who's not in a good place in their lives, then imagine just focusing your attention and on it. It can be quite intense, and definitely that's where the part where I think it's not a good idea. So that's pretty much the only profile and I've had students actually who have applied, like 2 of them, who fit a similar profile, and I had to tell them, not in a way like, you're not meant for this, or you're too fucked up, or anything like that, but it's really just the idea of like, it's not always meant for everybody at any point of time, and I feel that either you could benefit from something that's more, sorry, the words I'm missing, more, sorry, I'm francophone, like quelque chose qui t'entoure plus. Because, for example, counseling or just other mindfulness programs where it's not just, you can contact the coordinator by email, you have something you can call him or whatever, or, it's a more intensive program. Then that's the other references I refer them to. So I tell them, if you're interested in mindfulness, there's some more thorough ones in Montreal that cost more money, but you have these options. or if not, you have the Concordia Counseling Services. Does that answer?
Princess?
I kind of want to just touch up on that because I've been in a mindfulness program, except it was in the U.S. So it's a little different from the way it's done here. And also like funding is heavily available for a lot of those sorts of things. I know that a counselor brought up potentially, how about if a student drops out, it's a free, like putting in a deposit and stuff. But usually like, and when I was in the program, I was in my freshman year, so I was like real lost in sauce. But for the most part, like, the students that end up applying are usually people who like will stick through it. And I know that it's a relatively small, like I guess you could say startup, like right now. But I think what you're doing is great. I just wanted to know, because since we're talking about students who may be like, I guess, sent elsewhere or referred elsewhere, do you by any chance have like, have you narrowed or like, do you have like specifics? Just because I've had an experience with the psychiatric center here at Concordia, and I would never refer them, ever, absolutely, ever refer them. And so I was just curious as to like, what your process would be for referring students and stuff like that, just because it's quite disappointing when you can't get into the program, and I know that it's you're looking for a specific kind of student.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts right now.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, it's great. The first thing is, did you say psychiatric services?
No,
Or did you mean counseling?
I meant counseling services.
Oh, counseling services. Okay.
I get them confused. I've done both.
Yeah, okay. I was just like, psychiatrics, it's when, like, where's the secret hospital? Health services, I guess. Okay, well, that being said, okay, so it's not psychiatric services, counseling. Well, thing is, it's a little bit hard to tell at that point. First of all, it's not the interview process, I call it interview screening, but I tell people straight up, this is not like, are you qualified? Are you good enough? It's not about that. The screening process is twofold. It's one, explaining to them the program as thoroughly as I can, and then seeing their interests. So that kind of responds to what Rory was wondering about. I have had people who didn't come to one session, maybe sometimes two, but it's not because they didn't want to, it's because they couldn't, because they have midterms, because they have, and I can't stop them. I will tell them and again, it's very important for you guys to come to the sessions, and you guys will understand why, and there's no recaps. But if you guys can't come, I mean, I'm not going to chase you down, you know, this is university. For what is the referral, and then, so that's the first part. And then the second part is questions regarding to medical and mental health. So I don't go too in depth because very importantly, it's important to remember that this program is a light program. It's not a 2-month program, it's not a therapy program. There's only so much we take in charge. So in those moments where I have discussions about people, medical, mental health, I trust them to tell me what's going on. And if there's things they're hiding from me, I can't do anything about it. And then if I see that it's a case that we can't take on, there's only so many references I can give. If anybody wants to teach me new references, and as a psych student, I do have a fair amount, I'm super open to it. But truth is, in Montreal, there's not that many options. Like there are, and I'm, you know, who knows? Like maybe there's some I'm missing out, but counseling services for a Concordia student is kind of the best I can do because it's affordable. And
I actually, like, with my own accord, have a list of, like, sliding scale psychologists that are available in Montreal.
Love
so
it.
we can, like,
Need it.
add that to this list of resources.
Yeah,
Because,
exactly. If we can start a big list for in-case students, I would love that. Also, as I said, I proposed this program to counseling services at first, so I have a pretty good rapport with them. And I told them, like, could you guys refer students from your psychologist to me, and could I refer you guys? I'm sorry you had a bad experience, but there is that relationship, and I feel comfortable with that. And then the other part is just I have been to a lot of different mindfulness programs. I know a lot of like different leaders in Montreal, so I do feel quite comfortable.
Thank you. Jared?
I feel like everyone is on a, maybe not the exact same, but fairly similar page. I think I'd like to call the question.
Okay. Is there any objection to calling the question? Perfect. All right. So all those in favor.
Just point of order.
Yeah.
What's the motion again? If you can put it back to the side, please.
Are you putting it in the Facebook group? Oh yeah, it was. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I can also put it in that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. My mistake. Right.
Oh no, I have it in the doc. I just wanted to say it for those who didn't get a chance to see it.
Okay. All right. So the motion is as stated on.
Was it
the
second, the motion?
board. Yeah, it was by Rowan. Right. Perfect. So all those in favor of the motion on the screen, please raise your placards. 12. All those opposed? 0. Perfect. So that carries. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
All right.
Good.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you guys. Have a good day.
We voted to call the question.
No, there was no vote because there was no dissent. Yeah.
Oh, right.
All right. Does anyone have anything else to add on the mindfulness program point?
So we actually voted directly on the motion?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Oh, that's really fine.
It was just everyone kind of came to a consensus.
Yeah.
There was nothing else to add.
Okay.
All right, perfect. On that note, just a little reminder to maintain our decorum. I know when we have external guests, there are invited guests, so obviously I'm not going to correct them, but let's try not to swear at council. Moving on to point 5, maximum prescription drug coverage, and Sophie. All right, perfect. So we can start with the motion, please.
So, let me just, sorry, give me a second to pull up the motion. Right. So, whereas the rise of expensive biological drugs on the market has placed the CSU insurance plan at a huge risk to the cost of the insurance coverage, whereas there are only 2 instances of students claiming over $10,000 in the past 2 years for prescription drugs, whereas there is no maximum annual coverage for prescription drugs under the CSU insurance plan, be it resolved that the CSU implement an annual maximum drug coverage of $50,000 per policy year.
Okay, do we have a second? Jared, your motivation, Sophie?
Right. So my motivation is basically when I first met with Lev Buckman and our account manager Alexander Golovkov at ASEC with John, we were presented with a letter that was drafted in August of 2017 for the last executive with regards to this current gap in the insurance plan, where basically the use of prescription drugs by students at the Concordia on the Concordia plan, CSU plan, is going up, and that's great. It means that people are aware of their plan and they're saving money. However, it has put us at a bit of a risk because biological drugs are much more expensive than other kinds of pharmaceuticals. They often cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to maintain. It is a bit of an ethical question because sometimes these are life-saving drugs, but it has put us in a situation where essentially someone could register as an undergraduate at Concordia just to have access to our healthcare plan, and we would have to cover the use of their drugs. Realistically, I believe that the Quebec government should be the one responsible for paying for these drugs, but my personal belief that that's the case doesn't make it the case, and it does put us at a huge risk of incredible increases in our plan costs over the next few years should anyone in the situation come onto our plan. In the past 2 years, we haven't had an instance where anyone has claimed even close to $50,000 for prescription drugs, so we're putting in this maximum as a safeguard to make sure that in an instance where this happens, there's a maximum that people can withdraw. We have a maximum coverage for our vision, we have a maximum coverage for our dental, we have a maximum coverage for psychology services. We just don't have one for prescription drugs, so it's just closing that loophole and making sure that we're safeguarded. Lev Buckman has told me to tell you all that he loses sleep at night over this, so I think we should, for the sake of Lev's sleep, pass this motion.
Thank you. Lori?
Can you, so you say there's been no instances of anyone using drugs over 50,000?
There's been no instances of anyone claiming over $14,786.95 in the past 2 years.
And those are specifically for biological drugs, not just all prescription drugs?
That's for all prescription drugs, not just biological drugs.
Okay, and we're not talking about one specific drug. If we're, say, excluding from like the drug formulary, we're talking about all the prescriptions per year.
Maxed at $50,000 per policy year.
And what types of conditions would we be covering through a $50,000 biological coverage.
I mean, I don't know. There's no limitations on what would be covered. It's just that you can only you would max out at 50,000 per policy year. So there would be no, like, if you have a drug that you take and it costs 50,000 for the policy year, then that's fine. There's no restrictions. If it costs $50,001, then you have to pay the $1. That's my understanding of it. There's no restrictions around what drugs are and are not covered. It's just putting a maximum on all prescription drugs at that level.
Thank you. Yes, John?
Yeah, one thing that's worth noting is that in the rare circumstances where someone does have a condition where the public health care system does not cover their treatment and the student union health plan won't be able to cover them, they do have such an expensive health treatment plan, there is a third way to find coverage for their treatment, which is that the pharmaceutical companies often are required to have what's called a compassionate care plan. So if through the insurance plan that they have and the public health care insurance will not cover it, they can, there is clauses that exist through the companies themselves that they have to, through their compassionate care programs, ensure that these people with very severe conditions, often like cancers and different things like that, will be covered through that. So having the maximum coverage actually in many ways ensures that rather than having the student union's health plan take the burden of these large healthcare costs, actually gets put onto the companies themselves in these cases. So just keep that in mind. We're not making sure that the very few people that do have very large, expensive conditions will not be left in the cold as a result of this decision.
Thank you. David?
I don't have any personal dilemmas with taking prescription drugs, so I don't know how expensive it really takes, but to me personally, $50K is still a really large maximum.
So, sorry, wasn't a question.
No, but it's getting there. Well, no, can I actually motion to change something? Instead of maxing it at $50K, we max it at $40K instead?
The motion to amend has to be done at the beginning, but like, do you have a question first for Sophie? Okay, because there's a bit of a speakers list as well, so I'll just let a couple of other people go by if they have questions.
Tell me where I'm ready to go.
Okay, Rowan?
Oh, so no.
Okay, Sophie?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that this was given to us at the advice of the insurance company who understands the policy limitations, I think, better than we would. They are experienced in this and have a vast understanding. I understand that 50K is still a large number, but I also think that it's a number that we are comfortable with and was also proposed to us by the insurance company themselves. So if they're comfortable with it, I think we can safely assume that it's okay.
Thank you. David? Then Princess Rowan.
Well, it was just to make that amending, because personally, like he said, there's also other programs that could help out, and anybody going up to the 50K mark, they could use other resources, which would in turn save us money. And either way, I saw the max reported in the past 4 years was, I think, 33K.
Okay, just to confirm, was that an official, you want to amend?
Yes,
Okay.
I would like to see if that's possible.
Okay, is there a second for the amendment?
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay, so there's no second, so the amendment is not on the table.
What was it? Do I need to write the amendment? That's the amendment.
I mean, yeah.
What was the amendment?
It was to change it from 50 to 40, and then you can just write no second.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Princess?
I just wanted to get a clarification on something. So this 50K would apply to drugs, prescription drugs for
A policy year.
a policy year, but is it for a specific kind of drug? Because I heard, okay, just that was just what I said. Okay, it's all of them? Okay. I'm not even covered by this insurance, so
Okay, thank you. Rowan?
Yeah, I was wondering, because as it currently stands, correct me if I'm wrong, the way this works is if someone was to charge over $50,000, it would come out of Desjardins' pocket, and then we get hit by it as they came to charge us for the next year. Our rates would go up. Is that correct?
Do you have a direct response?
That's my understanding
Okay.
of what's going on. Basically, Desjardins would get charged for it, and not only would our policy rates go up, but yeah.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is what we're doing while we're still with Desjardins, if we're looking at going to self-insured and removing Desjardins from the picture. This like this still makes sense, obviously, but does this number still make sense?
As far as I'm aware, it still makes sense. We can also reassess it should it cease to make sense in that contingency.
Okay, thank you. Oh, put you on the speakers. There's just a couple of speakers. John, Sophie, and then Rory. Sorry, go ahead. Sophie?
So if I look at
Oh,
the
sorry, other Sophie.
Oh,
My
sorry,
apologies.
it was like-
Yes, you.
at the hypothetical claims, so that means that if no one reaches 50,000 in claims, our rate will not increase, right? By 9%. Like that's okay, let me rephrase this. So essentially it would, if someone reached our limit at 50,000, the rate would increase by 9% the following year.
Wait. Like, if we pass this motion and the maximum is 50,000, it doesn't affect the rate because they just can't claim anymore. But if right now they were to claim over 50,000, then our rate would increase.
Because there's this little graph chart, I guess.
Yeah.
So I have trouble understanding. Is it like if someone claims over claims 25,000, then at the end of like the fixed amount period, whatever, it would increase by 5%, and then if it's 50 by 9%, right? So that's why we want to freeze it at 50. So it's maximum 9% increase. Correct? Is the clarification? Yeah. Is that okay?
Right.
Okay. Cool.
Rory?
Yeah, so if I understand this correctly, to again maybe I guess paraphrase, right now the insurance company is insuring us at an unlimited liability standpoint. They're saying we're going to cover up to anything basically. Right now it's not very risky for them because no one has yet done that. If someone does start doing that, they have a drug that's $80,000 for that year. The drug company says, holy shit, this is a lot more risky than we were expecting for this plan, for these premiums that we're charging. Therefore, we need to up the rates next time. When we set the limit down to 50, that will be immediately incorporated in, what is the chance of someone reaching that 50 cap, and then that's part of our premiums that we pay, period. That's typically how the insurance model works. The comment I would make about if we're going to a self-insured model is that absolutely 50,000 is the wrong number if we were doing it self-insured, because the risk factors for insuring 36,000 students versus Desjardins insuring millions is very, very different when it comes to how the actuaries do their calculations for insurance. So if we were just insuring 36,000 people, we would definitely not have that number, just to lay that out there for when that question comes up. And if it ever did, we would, or at least we should be hiring an actuary to go through that.
We would.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. David?
I call the question if it's not too late.
There's no other speakers on the list. Is there any dissent to calling the question? Okay, so we can proceed to a vote. Do we have the motion? Does anyone need the motion reread, or we're all on the same page? Okay, perfect. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. Nine. All those opposed? Right.
I abstain.
And
I
abstain.
abstain.
Sophie, Caleb, Chris, Sammy. There we go. Got all that?
Do you guys want them noted?
Yeah, if they raise, then it's noted. Perfect. All right. So with that, is there any more discussion on the maximum prescription drug coverage? All right. So if not, we can move on to the sustainable. Oh, yes.
Yeah, just a small point. If we've made this change, can we advertise this to students? Not that not that it would really matter, but I think in all fairness, it's a good thing to say. By the way, this has changed. You can now claim up to. Just so that we don't have a student that is going to their doctor saying, "Oh yeah, I'm good for this $80,000 experimental drug," and then not knowing.
Sophie?
We will be in conversation with ASEC to make sure that all our promotional material reflects that accordingly. we've been in contact with them since. And just to clarify, this was brought to last year's executive attention and nothing came of it. So this has been a year that people at the CSU have been aware that this is an outstanding issue, and it took until this year's executive got into power for anything to be done about it. So,
All right, thank you.
Too distracted by my tickets.
Sustainability Action Fund, or you wanted to speak on the?
No, it's fine.
Okay. So we're at point 6, Sustainability Action Fund appointment, and who is speaking to this? Sophie?
yeah, so we have an open CSU representative seat on the Sustainability Action Fund Committee. Basically, you approve cool sustainable projects on campus and work with Mark Underwood, who used to do Sustainability Concordia but is now the CEO of SAF. It's super cool. If you're interested in sustainability, we have to fill this seat. Otherwise, it'll just stay empty. So we're opening the floor to people who want to be appointed to SAF. If not, it'll just come back to regular council.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to sit on the Sustainability Action Fund, nominate someone else, themselves, questions, discussion? Rowan?
What's the time commitment for this?
So,
Let me double check the email from Mark Underwood.
It's a counselor seat that's open, right?
Yeah, it's a CSU representative
Okay.
for counselors, because so there's nothing about the time commitment, but I don't think it's that much. I would double check with Akira to be sure, but Akira's not here and I don't have much information. I'm gonna check the staff website and maybe there will be more info there. So if everyone can bear with me for a bit, let me.
did you want to ask a question first, or?
I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a motion to postpone to a regular council meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have a second?
Yes.
So motion to table, seconded by Margot. As there's no discussion on a motion to table with a finite date, so all those in favor of tabling this to September 19th.
I just have a
Yeah.
discussion about the tabling it.
There's no discussion on a
Okay.
motion to table. This is the thing. Sorry.
Move the table.
Sorry.
Move the table of topic.
Yeah, to the 9th September meeting,
Oh, yeah.
or next regular
Yeah.
council. All right. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. 10. All those opposed. 1. Perfect.
I abstain.
All right, and Jared abstains. But we can still talk about staff. So Sophie, did you want to add something?
Well, they just mentioned that it was kind of pressing to fill that seat, so I feel like we didn't even discuss it. I don't see why we should table it, but
Samantha?
In my response, it's just because we don't always have full attendance, so it's nice to pool people that may want to be really interested in the project and that also haven't had their shot yet to pick as many commitments/committees as possible. So I understand that it is urgent to make a placement, but at the same time, I wanted to think of other people that aren't here today and may want to be part of SAF.
All right, thank you. Yes, Rory?
Can I move to allow the chair to open a speakers list the next time we table something?
Yeah.
Is it-
Table something with a finite date. Because if you table indefinitely, you can debate it. If you table it with a date, you cannot.
Is there a second for that?
That being said.
Is that a formal
Alex,
motion?
yeah.
Sorry,
Yes.
what was the motion? I'm sorry.
It was-
To allow the to allow the chair to take a speakers list to allow speaking during a tabling motion in the future. If it's been seconded, just very quickly, like if the chair is just enforcing the rules, but we at the end of the day have the discretion to tell the chair which rules to and which ones not to enforce. And precisely in this type of situation, there are good reasons to table or good reasons not to table, and it doesn't need to be a 10-minute discussion, but we should just allow those to be voiced briefly before voting on a tabling motion. It seems quite ridiculous to me that we go straight to voting on postponing something that may be urgent and we wouldn't know. So, yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
And we trust Caitlin's discretion to, keep that short in between.
Thank you. Just to clarify, sorry, for my sake, is that for the year or for today?
Yeah, future.
Perfect.
Oh, for the year?
All right. Okay, is there any discussion on Rory's motion? Or the motion on the table? Okay, so if not, all those in favor, please raise your placards. 11, all those opposed. 1. Perfect. So that carries. Yes?
If I may, James also wants to be conferenced in.
Okay. Yep, we discussed it and it's cool as long as somebody can conference in it.
Okay.
Oh, his expectation was that you were conferencing.
He hasn't reached out to me, and I don't have his Skype info.
I don't know why he's messaging me, but he's like, I haven't been conferenced in.
Yeah, he just asked me as well.
Okay, so maybe just ask
Let
him.
me just
I don't
send
have
him a message.
I don't. Nobody reached out to me, so
Someone can
if
take care of that? 'Cause I
y'all
guess
want
he's- I guess he's
something,
messaging
you gotta
a couple
ask it.
people.
Okay, so we will deal with that. Yes, Sophie.
Because does he want to be conferencing for the closed session? Because that doesn't make sense. Like that's.
Don't ask him.
Yeah.
Okay, just to clarify, yes, members can be conferenced in, they cannot vote. But as a counselor, it is James's right to be in session. James is a counselor, so regardless of whether it's conferenced or not, that's fine. Yes, Chris?
Question, could you be conferenced in for closed session?
Yeah.
There's nothing that prohibits it. In my opinion, yes, one can be conferenced in for closed session, presuming that we're all honest people and don't have an auditorium of 50 people watching a CSU's closed session in another country. I'm going to operate on the presumption that counselors are honest and acting in best faith. Rowan?
To kind of backtrack to the SAP point, when Sophie said like they're in need of a counselor, is it like SAP can't function until there's a CSU representative, or is it like they're going to be annoyed but still be able to function?
Do we have a response?
I'm not entirely sure, but he seemed to say that it was really pressing.
Sophie?
Yeah, in my conversation with Mark a week and a half ago, I was told it would be okay if this came to a regular council, so I said it would go to regular council, and then he met with Akira last week, and that changed, and so I don't know if it's, I think in the last week maybe something has changed and it's more urgent, but I have no idea because I have not heard from Mark about how pressing it is since Akira told me Mark said it was urgent that it come to this council. Sorry, that's not.
Yes. Is there any more discussion on the Sustainability Action Fund point? Yes, Jared?
I have a question. Who is currently on the sustainability?
Akira.
Just only Akira?
Well, Akira, and there's okay, the board of directors. There is the CSU Executive, CSU Council, ASFA, CASA, FASA, GSA, ECA, Sustainable Concordia, an alum, and 2 students at large. I don't know how many of them have changed because this is outdated. It says that Devin and Patrick are the CSU representatives.
Right, thank you. Is there any more discussion we had on SAF? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Sophie?
Well, I would just like to say that given the constitution of their board of director, they're probably like don't have a board right now if it's from every association. So anyway, just putting this out there.
Yes.
I would just like to point out that in the past, this mandate, we have been giving people the chance to have put their name forward, and I would like that to continue. So I would just like to speak in favor that we just move forward with this, and we just let this go to September. But yeah.
Thank you. Okay, is there any more discussion on SAF? Rory?
Yeah, in that same spirit, Sophie, if you could like maybe just post this in the group or something, so that the counselors that aren't here, it's like a heads up of, hey, we need someone for staff. It's coming up in September. So people who weren't here during this discussion can maybe think about it and say, oh yeah, okay, this is something I want to do. Because otherwise, like I find a lot of these things are surprises. Counselors may not know what they are, and that gives them a chance to prepare.
All right, thank you very much. Any further discussions, questions? All right, so if not, that will be done, and we are on to point 7, which is former general coordinator, legal proceedings, informational. And who is taking this point?
Well,
Patrick, yeah.
Yes. Well, I just want to know what's been going on with that. I guess this came back and this started in June, and we just wanted to know. Well, I for one wanted to know about that for sure.
Sophie?
So basically, we had sent an email to the former general coordinator asking for clarification as per the advice given to us by our legal team, who said that we needed confirmation in writing. We have not received anything back from Omar. It has been over 30 days. I saw him today and I asked him to answer the email in person, and he sort of blew me off and then disappeared. And at this point, our lawyer has been on vacation this past week, so when I called for follow-up last week, there was no one at the office with enough background on the situation to give me adequate legal advice of how to proceed from here. He is coming back tomorrow, so I anticipate that I will be calling him tomorrow and getting much more information about the situation and how to proceed. Yeah, essentially, we don't have anything more from Omar, so we're just looking to our legal team for how to proceed in terms of moving forward. That's the best update I have. And essentially, I'm sorry, I don't have anything more concrete, but we are working with Hayes to figure out the situation because obviously it's kind of garbage.
Yeah.
Thank you. John?
I just had one little piece of information, which doesn't really change anything, but just so you know the full story, is that approximately 20 days after I contacted him with the letter, he wrote me back saying, can you clarify which documents you're referring to? Which, so he asked for basically copies of the invoices that are in question. And so I submitted those to him immediately, and then following that,
John.
Yeah.
Can't hear
Oh,
you.
sorry, I was
He
speaking.
can't
Sorry,
hear you
sorry.
either.
There's a big
Did you hear none of that?
No.
Okay, sorry. So approximately 20 days after I contacted Omar asking him for that information, he reached out to me by email asking for more information about the invoices. So I sent those invoices to him, as well as the letter of engagement, which was in question. And from that, there has been no further contact to me from Omar.
Thank you.
So we gave him a very generous 30 days to reply. You decide what you want to do about that now.
Yes, Rory?
Yeah, it just seems to me that, like, if the lawyer's advice was to send an email and we don't get a response after 30 days, like, even if he does email back, it's not conclusive proof. If you sent him a registered demand letter from the lawyer and he doesn't pick up the registered letter, then that's much more useful in court than he didn't answer an email. So I'm a little surprised that the lawyers didn't jump to that. For something like this, like it's $20,000, $30,000 some, that's a large lawsuit figure in terms of damages. And I would just recommend that that's the way we proceed from now on, is we don't email, we send a registered letter, or we get a bailiff to show up with the letter.
Thank you. Sophie?
Right, we were just going off of the legal advice we received from our lawyer, and we will take that into account moving forward in the conversations with our lawyer that we'll be having in the next few days.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion on the former general coordinator legal proceedings? Questions? All right. Thank you very much. So if not, at this point we can move on to point number 8, which is poor relations between council and the executive. It's put as a closed session, but it's up to council. Rory?
Move to go into closed session.
Okay, do we have a second? Jared, all those in favor of entering closed session, please raise your placards. 8. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Rowan, was I opposed? Okay, 4, and any abstentions. Okay, so if it's 8 to 4, Marlene abstained, sorry.
What was it? Sorry. The vote?
Oh, sorry. It was 8-4 for against.
Yeah.
And 1 abstention, Marlene. Is that a 2/3? Sorry, my math is failing me. Yes, it is a 2/3. All right. So in that case, we will enter closed session. So I just ask anyone who's not executive, council, myself, the minute keeper, and JB to please exit the room, and we'll call you back when, yes?
It's the last one on the agenda, so just go home.
Oh, yes, that's a good point. Yeah, at this point, it is the last point on the agenda. There are announcements if you want to stick around, but it's all up to you.